The blood from Delia Crawford's split lip trickled down her chin as she spurred her horse faster into the gathering dusk of the Montana Territory. 1876. Behind her lay the shattered remains of a life she once believed would be filled with love. Ahead lay nothing but wilderness and the desperate hope that Daniel Fletcher wouldn't catch her before nightfall. The thundering hoofbeats of her chestnut mare echoed her racing heart as she navigated the rocky terrain. 3 years of marriage to a man whose charm had dissolved into cruelty on their wedding night had finally culminated in violence she could no longer endure. The bruises hidden beneath her sleeves were nothing compared to what he'd promised would happen when he returned from the saloon tonight. So she'd taken her chance, grabbed the emergency money she'd been secretly saving, and fled with only the clothes on her back and her mother's silver locket around her neck. Daniel owned everything else, including, according to him, her very life. Rain began to fall as darkness descended, transforming the dirt trail into treacherous mud. Delia's mare, already exhausted from hours of hard riding, stumbled on the slippery ground. Delia fought to maintain her balance, but a sudden lightning flash startled the horse, sending both of them tumbling down a steep embankment. Pain shot through Delia's ankle as she landed hard against the rocky ground. The mare whinnied in distress nearby, having fared little better. Tears mingled with the rain on Delia's face as she tried to stand, only to collapse back into the mud. The realization struck her like another bolt of lightning. She was stranded, injured, and utterly alone in the middle of nowhere. "Help," she called weakly, her voice drowned by the intensifying storm. "Please, someone." Her consciousness began to fade as the cold rain soaked through her clothes. In her final moments of awareness, she thought she heard hoofbeats approaching, but couldn't be sure if they belonged to her salvation or her doom. When Delia next opened her eyes, she found herself in a small, warmly lit cabin. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, and she lay on a simple but comfortable bed, her ankle carefully wrapped and elevated on a pillow. Her wet clothes had been replaced with an oversized man's shirt, and a blanket covered her legs. Panic seized her as she tried to sit up. Where was she? Had Daniel found her? Her sudden movement sent pain shooting through her injured ankle, drawing a gasp from her lips. "Easy there, madam," came a deep, gentle voice. "That ankle's taken quite a beating." A tall man stepped into view from the shadows of the cabin. Broad-shouldered and lean-hipped, he moved with the easy grace of someone accustomed to hard physical labor. His face, partially obscured by several days' worth of beard, was weathered by sun and wind, but his eyes were kind beneath the brim of his hat. "Who are you?" Delia asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she clutched the blanket tighter around herself. "Name's Noah Blackwood," he replied, keeping his distance as if sensing her fear. "Found you and your horse down in the ravine during the storm, brought you both back here to my place." He gestured toward the window. "Your mare's fine, by the way. She's in the stable with my gelding." Delia's eyes darted nervously around the cabin, seeking escape routes. "Did anyone follow us?" Noah shook his head. "Not that I saw, but the rain would have washed away any tracks anyway." He paused, studying her with perceptive eyes. "Someone after you, madam?" The question hung in the air between them. Delia's hand unconsciously moved to her bruised cheek, and she saw Noah's gaze follow the movement, his expression hardening slightly as he noticed the fading marks there and the fresh split in her lip. "My husband," she finally admitted, her voice breaking. "I ran away." "He'll kill me if he finds me." Noah's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. "Well, he won't find you here. My place is pretty isolated. We're a good 15 miles from the nearest town." He moved toward a pot hanging over the fire. "Think you could manage some stew?" "You've been out nearly a day." Delia's stomach growled in response, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since her hasty departure. She nodded gratefully as Noah ladled thick, fragrant stew into a bowl and brought it to her, along with a spoon and a tin cup of water. "Thank you," she murmured, accepting the food with trembling hands. I don't know how to repay your kindness." "No need," he replied simply, returning to his chair across the room to give her space. "Just rest and heal up. We can figure out the rest later." As Delia ate the hearty stew filled with tender beef, potatoes, and carrots, she studied her rescuer more carefully. Noah Blackwood looked to be in his early 30s, with dark hair that curled slightly at the collar of his faded blue shirt. Though he had the rugged build and sun-darkened skin of a cowboy, there was a gentleness to his movements that put her at ease despite her circumstances. "This is your home?" she asked between bites, trying to distract herself from the throbbing pain in her ankle. Noah nodded. "For the past 5 years, I run cattle on about 200 acres, nothing fancy, but it's mine, free and clear." "You live here alone," a shadow passed over his features. "My wife, Rebecca, passed 3 years ago. Fever took her and our newborn son." He said it matter-of-factly, but Delia could hear the quiet grief beneath his words. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Noah acknowledged her sympathy with a slight nod. "Life out here doesn't allow much time for mourning. There's always work to be done." He rose and took her empty bowl. "You should rest now. That ankle needs time to heal." As exhaustion pulled at her, Delia realized she hadn't told him her name. "I'm Delia," she said as her eyelids grew heavy. "Delia Crawford." "Rest well, Miss Delia," Noah replied, his voice following her into sleep. "You're safe here." For the first time in years, Delia believed those words might actually be true. The next few days established a cautious routine. Noah tended to his ranch work during the daylight hours, checking on Delia periodically to bring her food, fresh water, and books from his modest shelf. Her ankle, while badly sprained, was gradually improving, and by the 3rd day, she could hobble around the cabin with the aid of a walking stick Noah had fashioned for her. "I should be doing something to earn my keep," Delia insisted as Noah returned from his chores one evening to find her attempting to prepare dinner despite her limited mobility. "You need to heal first," he countered, gently guiding her back to her chair which had originally been his, but he'd insisted she use it as it was more comfortable than the wooden stools at the table. "I've been taking advantage of your kindness for days now," she persisted. "At least let me cook." "I'm quite good at it." Noah regarded her with amusement. "Better than me, I'd wager. That wouldn't be difficult." He relented with a nod. "All right, but you sit at the table while you work. No standing on that ankle more than necessary." As Delia set about improving the evening meal with the ingredients available, she found herself relaxing in Noah's presence. Unlike Daniel, whose moods could shift like quicksand, Noah was steady and predictable. He moved deliberately, spoke softly, and always announced his approach before entering a room where she might be resting. "How did you come to be out in that storm?" Noah asked as they ate the chicken and dumplings Delia had prepared. Delia hesitated, then decided she owed him the truth. "I married Daniel Fletcher when I was 18. He seemed charming, successful, everything a girl from a struggling farm family could want. My parents were thrilled." She stared into her bowl. "The charm disappeared the moment we were alone after the wedding. He told me I was his property now, to do with as he pleased." Noah's knuckles whitened around his spoon, but he remained silent, allowing her to continue. "For 3 years I tried to be a good wife. I thought if I was perfect enough, he wouldn't get so angry, but it only got worse." Delia's voice grew hollow. That night, he'd been drinking more than usual, said he was going out to the saloon, and when he returned, he was going to teach me a lesson I wouldn't forget. She touched her split lip. "This was just the beginning," he said. "So you ran," Noah said quietly. Delia nodded. "I'd been saving odd coins, selling eggs from our hens when he wasn't looking. Had just enough to take my horse and go. I didn't even know where I was heading, just away from Silver Creek." Noah's eyes widened slightly. "Silver Creek? That's nearly 40 miles from here." "I rode all day," Delia confirmed, "until the storm caught me." They ate in silence for a moment before Noah spoke again. "What will you do now?" It was the question that had been haunting Delia since she'd awakened in his cabin. "I don't know," she admitted. "I have a cousin in California. Maybe I could make my way there eventually." It's a hard journey for a woman alone, Noah observed without judgment. I know, but I can't go back. Delia's voice held a new firmness. I'd rather face the wilderness than spend another day with him. Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. You're welcome to stay here until you're healed and have a proper plan. No rush. That night, as Delia lay in the bed Noah had insisted she continue using while he slept on a bedroll near the fire, she reflected on how different her current situation was from what she'd expected when she fled Silver Creek. She'd anticipated hardship, fear, and loneliness, not the quiet kindness of a solitary rancher who asked nothing in return for his help. For the first time since her wedding day, Delia allowed herself to hope. As days turned into weeks, Delia's ankle healed, and she found herself falling into the rhythm of ranch life. Noah taught her to milk the 2 cows he kept, showed her how to collect eggs from the chickens without getting pecked, and even demonstrated how to mend fence posts, though he insisted she observe rather than assist with the heavier tasks. My mother would faint if she could see me now, Delia laughed one afternoon as she successfully chopped kindling for the fire, her ankle finally strong enough for her to stand without pain. Not one for practical skills, your mother. Noah asked, smiling as he adjusted the axe in her grip to give her better leverage. Oh, she had plenty of practical skills cooking, sewing, keeping a perfect home. But she was determined I would be a lady, Delia explained. She nearly disowned me when I insisted on learning to ride astride instead of side saddle. Noah chuckled. Good thing you learned. Side saddle wouldn't have gotten you very far that night. The casual reference to her escape no longer brought immediate fear. Here, in the daily routine of the ranch, Daniel Fletcher seemed far away. Still, Delia knew better than to believe she was truly free. Men like Daniel didn't simply let their property walk away. One evening, as summer transitioned to early fall, Noah returned from a supply run to town with a troubled expression. What is it? Delia asked, immediately sensing something was wrong. Noah hesitated before answering. There are wanted posters up in Copper Ridge, for you. Delia felt the blood drain from her face. What do they say? That you're a disturbed woman who stole money and valuables from your husband before disappearing. Noah's voice hardened. They're offering $50 for information leading to your return. Delia sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. He'll never stop looking for me, will he? Doesn't seem like it, Noah admitted, kneeling before her. But Delia, no one in Copper Ridge knows you're here. I've been careful about that. But I can't stay hidden forever, she whispered. I've already imposed on your kindness far too long. Noah shook his head firmly. You haven't imposed anything, having you here. He paused, choosing his words carefully. This place hasn't felt like a home since Rebecca died. Just somewhere to eat and sleep between work. But now. The unspoken sentiment hung between them, a fragile thing neither dared to examine too closely. Still, Delia said, I need to move on before I bring trouble to your door. Daniel has friends in high places. If he discovers I'm here, he'll come with the law behind him. Let me think on it, Noah replied, his brow furrowed in concentration. There might be another way. That night, Delia packed her few belongings, the clothes Noah had purchased for her in town, claiming they belonged to his late wife, and her mother's silver locket, preparing to leave at first light. She couldn't risk Daniel finding her here, couldn't bear the thought of bringing danger to the man who had shown her such kindness. Just before dawn, as she crept toward the door, Noah's voice stopped her. Running again? He asked softly from where he lay near the dying embers of the fire. Delia froze, clutching her small bundle. I have to. Noah sat up, his features barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness. I thought we might discuss my idea first. What idea? Delia asked warily. Come sit, he invited, rekindling the fire with practiced efficiency. Reluctantly, Delia returned to the table, setting her bundle aside. I've been thinking about your situation, Noah began, joining her at the table. Your husband can pursue you because legally you're still his wife. Everything you own, even yourself, belongs to him under the law. Delia nodded grimly. That's why I have to keep running. The law isn't on my side. Unless, Noah said carefully, you weren't his wife anymore. Divorce. Delia's eyes widened. That's nearly impossible, especially for a woman, and even if I could obtain one, I'd have to face him in court. Not divorce, Noah clarified. What if the law believed you were dead? Delia stared at him, confused. But I'm not. No, but your identity could be. Noah leaned forward, his expression earnest. When I was in town yesterday, I heard about a stagecoach accident 3 counties over. 4 passengers died, including a young woman traveling alone. She was burned beyond recognition. Understanding slowly dawned on Delia. You think I could assume her identity? Noah nodded. The notice said she was heading to Sacramento. No one claimed her body or her effects. If we could get documentation, it would be dishonest, Delia protested weakly, even as hope flared within her. More dishonest than a man claiming his wife is disturbed so he can continue to abuse her, Noah countered gently. Delia, I've seen your scars, not just the ones on your skin. You deserve a chance at freedom. Tears welled in Delia's eyes. Why would you go to such lengths to help me? You barely know me. Noah reached across the table, hesitating before lightly touching her hand. I know enough. I know you're brave and kind. I know you cook the best biscuits I've ever tasted. His attempt at humor drew a small smile from her. And I know that since you arrived, this place has felt like home again. The quiet admission hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to voice. What would this plan involve? Delia finally asked. I have a friend in Copper Ridge works for the county clerk. He could help obtain documentation for you, no questions asked. With a new identity, you could start fresh. And go where? Delia pressed. Daniel has connections throughout the territory. Noah hesitated, then spoke the words that would change both their lives forever. You could stay here, as my wife, Delia's breath caught. What? A marriage of convenience, Noah hastily clarified, though something in his eyes suggested he might hope for more eventually. No one would question a widow remarrying. It would give you protection under the law and me. He trailed off. And you, Delia prompted softly. I wouldn't be alone anymore, he admitted simply. The honesty of his response touched something deep within Delia. This wasn't a man seeking to own her as Daniel had. This was a man offering partnership, safety, and perhaps, in time, something more. I need to think about this, she said finally. Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. Take all the time you need. Either way, I won't let you face him alone. In the days that followed, Delia wrestled with Noah's proposition. A marriage of convenience seemed practical, but was it fair to either of them? Noah deserved a wife who came to him freely, without the shadow of another man's cruelty hanging over her. And Delia wasn't certain she could ever trust marriage again, even with someone as kind as Noah. Yet as autumn painted the surrounding hills in shades of gold and crimson, Delia found herself imagining a future here, helping with the spring calving, planting a garden behind the cabin, sitting beside Noah on winter evenings as they read by the fire. Simple dreams, but they called to her with surprising strength. One crisp October morning, Noah rode out to check on a broken fence line, leaving Delia to tend to the chickens and prepare lunch. She was kneading dough for bread when the sound of approaching horses made her freeze in terror. Peering cautiously through the window, she saw 3 riders approaching, none of them Noah. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she recognized the man in the lead. Daniel Fletcher, his face set in the cold, determined expression she knew all too well. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Delia forced herself to think. She couldn't run, they would easily catch her. She couldn't hide, they would search the cabin. Her only hope was to face them and somehow delay until Noah returned. Wiping flour from her hands, Delia took a deep breath and stepped onto the porch just as the riders reached the yard. Well, well, Daniel drawled, his eyes glittering with malice as he dismounted. My loving wife playing house in the wilderness, how touching. Daniel, Delia acknowledged, fighting to keep her voice steady. How did you find me? He smirked, removing his gloves with deliberate slowness. You think I don't have eyes everywhere? Someone saw you in town with your cowboy a few weeks back. Took me a while to track down exactly where you were hiding. The other two men remained mounted, watching with expressions that made Delia's skin crawl. She recognized one as the deputy sheriff from Silver Creek, wearing his badge prominently. As you can see, I've brought the law with me, Daniel continued, gesturing to the deputy. You're coming home, Delia, after you face charges for theft, of course. I didn't steal anything, Delia replied, her chin lifting in defiance. That money was mine from selling eggs. Daniel's face darkened. Everything under my roof belongs to me, including you. Now we can do this the easy way, or... He let the threat hang in the air. The deputy shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. Mr. Fletcher, you said this would be a simple retrieval of your wife. If there's going to be trouble, there won't be, Daniel interrupted, his eyes never leaving Delia. My wife is coming home willingly. Aren't you, dear? Time seemed to slow as Delia realized she had a choice to make. She could submit, return to the living hell that was her marriage, or she could fight knowing that Daniel might very well kill her this time. The sound of a rifle being cocked broke the tense silence. The lady isn't going anywhere she doesn't want to, came Noah's steady voice from the edge of the clearing. He stood with his Winchester leveled at Daniel, his expression calm but resolute. Daniel whirled to face the new threat. This doesn't concern you, cowboy. That's my wife, and I'm taking her home. That's so, Noah's gaze flickered briefly to Delia, because from where I'm standing, it looks like 3 armed men threatening a woman on my property. The deputy's hand moved toward his holster. Sir, I'm an officer of the law outside your jurisdiction, Noah countered evenly. This is Blackwood land, and the only law here right now is this rifle. Daniel's face contorted with rage. You're harboring my wife. I have every right. She's not your wife, Noah interrupted, taking a careful step forward. Not anymore. Confusion flickered across Daniel's features. What nonsense is this? Noah kept his rifle steady as he moved to stand beside Delia on the porch. Delia Fletcher died 2 months ago in a stagecoach accident near Elk Valley. This is my wife, Delia Blackwood. Delia's heart leaped at Noah's use of his surname for her, even as she maintained a composed expression. That's ridiculous, Daniel sputtered. She's standing right here. Is she? Noah asked calmly. Deputy, did you personally identify the body of the woman in that stagecoach accident? The deputy shifted uncomfortably. Well, no, but I have the death certificate and marriage license right inside, Noah continued. Official county documents. My wife and I were married 3 weeks ago by Reverend Thomas in Copper Ridge. There are witnesses. Daniel's face reddened with fury. She's lying to you. She's my wife, Mr. Fletcher, the deputy said hesitantly, if there are legal documents. They're forged. Daniel shouted, taking a menacing step toward the porch. Noah's rifle didn't waver. Take another step and you'll regret it. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Daniel's companion, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Daniel, let's think this through. If she's got papers saying she's this man's wife, shut up, James, Daniel snapped, but uncertainty had crept into his expression. Deputy, Noah addressed the lawman directly, I understand you're just doing your job, but I suggest you look at the situation clearly. You're outside your jurisdiction, attempting to force a legally married woman to go with a man claiming to be her husband, based solely on his word. The deputy frowned, clearly reconsidering his position. Mr. Fletcher, perhaps we should return to town and consult with the judge about these documents. There are no documents, Daniel roared. She's my wife, Delia finally spoke, her voice stronger than she'd ever used with Daniel before. I was never truly your wife, Daniel. I was your prisoner. And now I'm free. Something dangerous flashed in Daniel's eyes. With a sudden movement, he reached for the pistol at his hip. The crack of Noah's rifle split the air. Daniel howled in pain as the bullet tore through his shoulder, sending him staggering backward. The next one won't be a warning, Noah said quietly, already reloading. The deputy and James quickly dismounted, moving to assist the wounded Daniel, who was cursing vividly. "You shot an unarmed man," the deputy exclaimed. "He was drawing on me," Noah replied calmly. "As these gentlemen witnessed." He nodded toward James and the third rider, who had remained silent throughout the confrontation. James, looking from Daniel to Delia and back again, slowly nodded. "He's right, deputy. Fletcher went for his gun first." The deputy's expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced but knew he had few options. "This isn't over," he warned as he helped Daniel back onto his horse. "For your sake, I hope it is," Noah replied. "Because if you come back to my property threatening my wife again, I won't aim for the shoulder." The three men retreated, Daniel's curses fading as they rode away. Only when they were completely out of sight did Noah lower his rifle and turn to Delia, concern etched on his features. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Delia realized she was trembling, the full impact of what had just happened washing over her. "You called me your wife," she whispered. Noah's expression softened. "I had to make him believe. Did you mean it?" Delia interrupted, stepping closer to him. "About the documents, about making me Delia Blackwood? I've had the papers for weeks," Noah admitted. "My friend at the county office arranged everything just as I said he could, but I was waiting for you to decide if that's what you wanted." Tears welled in Delia's eyes. "You were willing to face down 3 armed men for me, even though I've given you no promise, no commitment." Noah set his rifle aside and gently took her hands in his. "Delia, I've known since the night I found you in that ravine that you were someone worth protecting. What I didn't expect was how quickly you'd become someone I couldn't imagine living without." The simple honesty of his words broke something open inside Delia, a place she'd kept tightly sealed since the day she realized what kind of man she'd truly married. With Noah, there were no games, no hidden agendas, no cruelty disguised as love. "I'm afraid," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "Not of Daniel anymore, of feeling again, of trusting." Noah's thumbs traced gentle circles on the backs of her hands. "I know. And I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. We could make the marriage real on paper, give you the protection of my name, and let the rest develop in its own time." "And if it never does?" Delia asked, needing to know he understood what he was offering. "Then I'll still have the privilege of sharing my life with a brave, kind woman who makes this place feel like home," Noah replied without hesitation. "I won't lie and say I don't hope for more eventually, but I've learned that true love doesn't demand or take it offers and waits." In that moment, looking into Noah's steady gaze, Delia knew that, while Daniel might return someday, she would never again face him alone. More than that, she realized that the feeling growing inside her over these past months wasn't merely gratitude or dependence, it was the beginning of something she had once believed impossible. A love based on respect, kindness, and choice. "I think," she said slowly, a smile tugging at her lips, "that Delia Blackwood would like to plant a vegetative garden behind the cabin next spring." Noah's answering smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "I think that could be arranged, Mrs. Blackwood." When he leaned down to kiss her, Delia didn't flinch or turn away. Instead, she rose on her tiptoes to meet him halfway, her heart opening to possibilities she had long since abandoned. 3 years later, Delia stood on the porch of the now expanded cabin, watching as Noah taught their 2-year-old son to pet the new foal in the corral. The sound of their laughter carried on the spring breeze, mixing with the clucking of chickens and the distant lowing of cattle. They had heard rumors that Daniel Fletcher had moved east following a failed attempt to contest their marriage in court. Noah's friend at the county office had ensured that all the documentation was impeccable, and several townspeople had been willing to swear they'd attended the wedding ceremony that had actually taken place 6 months after Daniel's confrontation, when Delia had finally felt ready to make their arrangement real in every sense. The garden behind the cabin now flourished with vegetables and flowers. Inside, Delia had transformed the once sparse space into a true home, with curtains at the windows, colorful quilts on the beds and books lining newly built shelves. Noah had added 2 rooms, one for their son and another that awaited the child Delia now carried beneath her apron. As she watched her husband lift their giggling son onto his shoulders, Delia's hand moved to the silver locket at her throat, the one possession she had brought from her old life. Inside, she had placed a small portrait of Noah and their son, a constant reminder that sometimes the darkest moments of one's life could lead to the brightest dawns. Noah looked up then, catching her eye across the yard. The love in his gaze still took her breath away, not because it was possessive or demanding, but because it was freely given, expecting nothing in return. Delia smiled and waved, her heart full. She had fled from a man who hurt her and found refuge with a cowboy who had helped her heal without asking for anything in return. But in the end, she had given him everything anyway: her trust, her love, her life, not because she had to, but because she chose to every single day. And in that choice, she had found not just safety, but the deepest form of freedom.